When Seeking Ends, a Buddha Reflection. I want to share something I began to notice quietly in my own mind. For a long time, I believed peace would arrive once things made sense. Once I understood my feelings, my choices, and the strange turns life sometimes takes. Until then, I kept searching. But the more I looked, the more I saw something the Buddha pointed to so gently. The search itself was keeping the mind restless. There was always one more answer to find, one more piece missing before I could finally relax. So today I want to explore a simple question with you. What happens when the seeking slows down? When the mind stops demanding that every moment explain itself before it allows peace? Sometimes the deepest calm does not come from understanding life. Sometimes it appears when we stop insisting that life must be understood at all. The quiet demand for answers. You have probably felt it before, a moment of confusion that refuses to resolve itself. Something happens in your life or inside your mind, and a quiet tension appears. You want to understand it. You want it to make sense. And until it does, peace feels postponed. I invite you to look at this habit with me, not to judge it, but to see it clearly. The Buddha often began in this same place. Not with certainty, but with the observation that the mind tightens when it demands clarity before it allows rest. You notice it in ordinary moments. A conversation that leaves you unsettled. A decision that does not feel complete. An emotion that has no obvious cause. The mind begins to circle. It searches for explanation like a hand feeling for a light switch in the dark. At first this seems reasonable. Understanding appears wise. But slowly you may notice something else. Peace is being used as a reward. The mind says quietly, once I understand this, then I can relax. The Buddha saw the strain inside this promise. Life rarely resolves itself on command. There is always something unclear, something unfinished, something beyond explanation. When peace depends on understanding, it waits endlessly at the door. The endless task. When the mind believes clarity must come first, life becomes a series of unfinished tasks. Each moment is treated like a puzzle that must be solved before you can truly settle. You may notice how exhausting this becomes. The mind reviews conversations long after they end. It tries to decode motives, interpret feelings, reconstruct events. It promises that one more insight will bring relief. Yet the relief rarely lasts. Even when you understand something, another question soon appears. Another layer asks to be examined. Another uncertainty waits quietly in the background. The Buddha recognized this pattern not as curiosity, but as subtle grasping. The mind reaches for certainty the way a hand reaches for solid ground in moving water. But water cannot be held that way. The tighter the grip, the more turbulence appears. You may begin to see that the search for perfect explanation is not neutral. It shapes how you live. Each unresolved moment becomes a small disturbance. Each unanswered question becomes a quiet weight. The mind begins to live in the future of understanding rather than the present of experience. Peace stays just ahead, always one answer away. Seeing the hidden fear. Peace does not wait for understanding. It appears when the mind stops demanding that life explain itself. The Buddha often pointed gently to something hidden beneath the search for answers. Not wisdom, but fear. The mind wants clarity because uncertainty feels unsafe. If something cannot be explained, it feels uncontrollable, and what cannot be controlled feels threatening. You may notice this in yourself with kindness. When something does not make sense, a subtle anxiety appears. The mind asks, what if I am missing something important? What if I am wrong? What if I am lost? These questions seem responsible, yet they carry a quiet assumption that life must always be understandable for you to stand within it safely. The Buddha saw the arrogance inside this belief, though he spoke of it with compassion. Reality does not revolve around your ability to explain it. Clouds move across the sky whether you interpret them or not. Rivers continue to flow whether their direction is understood or not. Life unfolds in the same way. Some things become clear in time, others remain mysterious. Peace appears not when everything is known, but when the demand to know relaxes. Confusion as a state. When the mind stops treating confusion as failure, something subtle changes. Confusion becomes simply another state passing through awareness. You may still feel it, a moment where direction is unclear, where understanding has not yet arrived. But instead of rushing to escape it, you begin to remain present with it. The Buddha compared this patience to watching water settle in a jar. When the jar is constantly shaken, the water remains cloudy. When it is placed down quietly, clarity comes on its own. Confusion works the same way. The more urgently you try to force explanation, the more agitation appears. Thoughts multiply, the mind spins faster. But when you allow confusion to exist without panic, something relaxes. You realize you can still breathe. You can still move through your day. You can still meet life, even while some things remain unclear. This realization marks a quiet maturity. Confusion is no longer a problem to eliminate. It is simply a moment that has not finished unfolding yet. Trusting awareness. When the demand for explanation softens, attention begins to shift. The center of gravity moves away from the thinking mind and towards simple awareness. The Buddha discovered this shift through direct observation. Thoughts constantly search for conclusions, but awareness itself does not require them. You can see this if you pause for a moment. Awareness notices sensations, sounds, emotions, and thoughts without insisting they justify themselves. A bird calls outside. A thought passes through the mind. A feeling moves across the chest. None of these ask permission to exist. Awareness receives them naturally. This receiving changes the quality of experience. Instead of evaluating each moment, you begin to participate in it. Life becomes less like a problem to solve and more like a current you move within. When awareness leads, responses arise naturally. You speak when words are needed. You rest when rest is needed. Nothing needs to be fully explained first. Insight and Awareness Quiz. After you have listened, open the quiz tab. The questions reveal how you interpreted what you heard and invite you to notice the hidden logic in your reactions. Then, share your score in the comments. Life is not a problem. What troubles the mind is not the moment itself, but the belief that the moment must be solved. Many people quietly turn life into a constant project. Each experience becomes something to analyze, improve, or resolve. The Buddha saw how heavy this makes the heart. When every moment is treated as a problem, the present is never enough. It becomes a temporary stage on the way to something better. You may recognize this in small ways, feeling restless even during calm moments. Thinking about how to improve yourself while life is already happening. Growth is natural, but constant self-correction carries a hidden message. Something here is not acceptable yet. This belief creates subtle resistance to the present moment. But the present does not require improvement in order to exist. It already contains confusion, clarity, joy, pain, and uncertainty. These movements rise and fall like waves in the sea. The Buddha observed them without turning them into enemies. When you begin to do the same, life slowly stops feeling like a problem to solve. Listening instead of judging. When the demand for explanation fades, a quieter relationship with reality begins to form. Instead of judging what appears, you start listening to it. The Buddha encouraged this kind of listening in every aspect of life. Not passive acceptance, but open attention. Attention that allows experience to reveal itself. A tree does not rush to explain its growth. It responds to sunlight, water, and soil quietly over time. Your life unfolds in a similar way. Moments arise with their own conditions. Some bring clarity, others bring uncertainty. When the mind stops insisting that everything makes sense immediately, perception widens. You begin to notice subtle details, the tone of someone's voice, the shift in your own breathing, the quiet signals that guide wise action. Judgment often drowns out these signals. Listening reveals them. Life begins to feel less like something you must control and more like something you can cooperate with. Trust without agreement. Even when the need for understanding softens, another tension may appear. You might allow reality to exist, yet still resist it. A situation unfolds and the heart quietly says, "I do not agree with this." This reaction is natural. The Buddha never suggested that human preferences disappear. The mind will still judge. The heart will still react. But peace does not require agreement. You can dislike a moment and still remain present within it. You can wish for change while accepting that this is what exists right now. The difference lies in whether the mind insists that peace must wait until conditions improve. When that insistence relaxes, something unexpected happens. The body settles slightly. Breathing deepens. Attention becomes clearer. Without the internal fight, you see the situation more honestly. Sometimes action becomes necessary. Other times patience becomes wiser. Both responses emerge more naturally when the mind is not struggling against the moment. The strength of staying. The wise do not wait for life to become agreeable. They learn to remain present even when it is not. Staying with discomfort requires courage. The mind often believes it must escape unpleasant states immediately. Yet the Buddha discovered that discomfort changes when it is observed without panic. A sensation of tension may arise in the body. A difficult emotion may move through the heart. When these experiences are resisted, they grow louder. But when they are allowed to exist, they often soften. You begin to feel their edges, their movement, their impermanence. Discomfort becomes information rather than threat. Like a passing storm, it reveals its shape and then slowly dissolves. Through this patient attention, trust begins to grow. Not trust that life will always be pleasant, but trust that you can remain present with whatever appears. This trust stabilizes the mind. Peace stops depending on the disappearance of difficulty, the quiet space of uncertainty. Another change appears when the mind stops demanding certainty. Uncertainty itself becomes easier to inhabit. Most people treat uncertainty as a temporary gap before answers arrive. But sometimes answers do not arrive at all. The Buddha recognized this and did not treat it as failure. Instead, he invited people to observe how the mind reacts to not knowing. The tightening, the urge to conclude quickly. When this urge relaxes, uncertainty transforms into space. You notice that life is unfolding moment by moment regardless of your conclusions. The body breathes. The day continues. Conversations happen. The present does not collapse simply because answers are missing. This realization brings unexpected relief. You can function, love, work, and respond to life without understanding everything first. The future no longer requires guarantees before you allow yourself to breathe fully. Peace becomes less fragile. The end of the inner argument. Many people live with constant internal debate. One part of the mind accepts what is happening while another insists it should be different. This quiet argument consumes enormous energy. The Buddha observed that suffering often comes not from pain itself, but from refusal. Pain plus resistance becomes struggle. Pain plus presence becomes experience. You may feel sadness, frustration, or fear. When these emotions are rejected, they intensify. When they are allowed, they move. Like weather crossing the sky, emotions reveal their shape and eventually pass. The end of the inner argument brings a sense of steadiness. You are no longer fighting your own experience. Instead, you are participating in it. From this participation, wiser responses naturally appear. Action becomes clearer because attention is no longer divided between the moment and the resistance to it. The freedom of not knowing the purpose. Meaning is not always something the mind discovers. Sometimes it is something the heart feels when it stops searching. Another habit begins to loosen as peace deepens. The habit of asking what everything is for. The mind likes to believe that each moment must serve a purpose. That experiences are steps toward a destination. But this belief quietly removes value from the present. If a moment only matters because of what it leads to, it is never fully lived. The Buddha saw that meaning often emerges naturally when the mind stops demanding it. You notice the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, the simple presence of another person. These moments do not require justification. They are complete as they are. When purpose is not forced, connection appears. Life feels less like preparation and more like participation. The simplicity of being here. As the search for meaning relaxes, another pressure begins to fade. The pressure to constantly improve yourself. Many spiritual seekers carry a quiet expectation. One day I will arrive. One day I will finally become peaceful enough. But presence does not accumulate like knowledge or skill. The Buddha discovered that awareness is already complete. What changes is only the stories the mind tells about it. When improvement becomes less urgent, ordinary moments regain their value. Washing dishes, walking down a street, sitting quietly in a room. None of these experiences need to become something greater. They are already expressions of life. You begin to see that peace does not belong to a future version of yourself. It is available within this very moment of being here. The humility of participation. When the mind stops trying to master life through understanding, humility naturally appears. This humility is not self-criticism. It is recognition. Life is larger than your explanations, larger than your plans, larger than the stories you create about it. The Buddha did not claim to control reality. He simply observed it deeply. From that observation came a quiet respect for the way things unfold. You begin to share this respect. Instead of demanding that life meet your expectations, you listen to what is actually happening. This listening softens your relationship with others as well. People no longer need to make perfect sense for you to care about them. Connection becomes easier when explanation is not required first. Peace without conditions. Freedom appears when the mind stops negotiating with the moment. When all these small shifts come together, peace becomes simpler than it once seemed. It is no longer tied to understanding, agreement, purpose, or improvement. It arises from openness. You remain present even when things are unclear, even when life unfolds in ways you would not choose. This presence creates a quiet steadiness in the background of experience. Thoughts continue. Emotions continue. Life continues to change. But the struggle to force clarity fades. The Buddha saw that this simple openness allows wisdom to appear naturally. Action comes when action is needed. Rest comes when rest is needed. Nothing needs to be solved first. Peace does not wait at the end of understanding. It is discovered in the willingness to be here. This is Buddha Reflections, where philosophy, insight, and lived experience meet to explore mind, impermanence, and release. The conversation doesn't end here. Visit the quiz tab and share your score in the comments. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Dharma and keep your thoughts bright.